Governments deny it. Militaries deny it. Even the mainstream media denies it. But they are here, and they've been here for a very long time. The Mutual UFO Network has been on the front lines uncovering the truth since 1969. And now we're sharing that truth with you. Welcome to MUFON What's Up with your hosts, Katie Page, Christopher DePerno, and Tara Diulis. Exclusively on the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. Wondering what's up? So are we.
What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday night, and you're listening to MUFON What's Up Radio, that show that says discovery starts with curiosity, and curiosity starts with MUFON, brought to you by KGRADB.com. I hope you go to their website and check out all their great content that they have to offer. I hope all of you are having, I don't know if we're in retrograde or something, but anything that can happen is happening this week. So I hope you all are having a better start of your week than some of us are here. But you know what? It's all good. We're going, we're rolling, and the sun's shining. So what more can you ask for? As always, we're brought to you by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, always asking that all-important question, are we alone in the universe? I am your host, Katie Page, the Colorado MUFON State Director, and tonight, we'll be talking to my friend, Melinda Leslie. I cannot wait to talk with her. You know, Melinda is an expert, and she has been over 30 years on a lot of this, you know, the government, the documents, all these things that I kind of, you know, it's kind of intense for me. So I can't wait to talk to her about those things. But I also can't wait to talk to her about her personal abduction experiences and get to know her better on a personal level. So I can't wait to bring her on. Again, I wanted to mention a few conferences coming up. This coming weekend is that Pikes Peak Conference, May 19th through the 21st. You can find more information about that at pikespeakparanormal.com. And I have a friend here visiting from out of town, and we went up to that Bigfoot Museum up there in Bailey yesterday, and Jim Myers happened to be there, and he'll be up there next weekend at the Paranormal Conference. And what I love about this conference as well, is put on by Tamara, who is a MUFON chief investigator out of Nebraska. Mindy Talfest will be there, the Oklahoma MUFON state director. But this conference covers, you know, UFOs, Sasquatch, and paranormal haunting. So it runs the gamut, and they have so many great things. They do a ghost hunt, a Bigfoot hunt, a Skywatch, and Bigfoot movies, and on and on and on. So it's a great event. I hope you guys can make it out for that. Also, I want to mention Contact in the Desert is back. I believe our wonderful guest, Melinda, is one of the speakers out there at Contact in the Desert, and that runs June 2nd through the 4th. So that's coming upon us very quick. That's out there in Indian Wells, California. That same weekend on the East Coast, we have the Pine Bush UFO Conference, and we have Kathleen Martin, Thomas Reed, Travis Walton, and Dr. Bill Wand out there, and that's always a fun event. The whole town has street vendors, and it's a really great time. So if you're on the East Coast, that's a really great one to check out. And last but not least, we have the MUFON Symposium that runs August 24th through the 27th in Cincinnati. And if you go out on the 24th, we have that Field Investigator Training Day. It's always a great day to do that. So that kind of wraps up our conferences. And you know, if you guys have a conference that you're aware of, feel free to go to Facebook, the MUFON What's Up Facebook page, and drop it in there. Or you can go to my website, katiepage.net, and send me a message and let me know about your events, and I'd be happy to share them on the podcast. So, you know, if you know of something that I'm not listing, please let me know about it. I'd love to do that. I want to thank all our listeners for being here tonight as well. Let's go ahead and bring in our co-host. We have Tara Diulis. Hi, Tara.
Hey, how's it going? Good.
Good.
Hi, everyone.
What's going on Sky Tour Live, by the way? You've been popping in on that?
Yes. Well, we're having we're going to make a trip to the observatory tomorrow and correct one of the cameras and fix that, and we should be up and running tomorrow afternoon. So
how many observatories do you guys have up and running now?
One is up and running, but we do have 2 telescopes and hopefully a third one very soon. So it's very exciting.
Nice.
Yes.
I'm always curious, like, Is the James Webb? I'm not keeping up on the James Webb. Is this like, what's the latest news? Are they capturing just unbelievable images?
Oh, absolutely. And there's so much to know, and there's so many different experiments that they're doing on that. So everybody should look that up. And we're learning a lot of things about the universe that we didn't know before. And
That's exciting.
It's an exciting time. It really is.
I can't wait till they find that life out there. You guys on Sky Tour Live are going to be the first ones to hear about it.
Wouldn't it be neat? We're gonna capture it on one of our streams.
Wow.
Be great.
That's awesome.
Be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's bring in Christopher DePerno. He is the state director of New York and is on the ERT team. And he has Jerry and Jenna. They're back from vacation.
They're back. And I have just received today an email that I'd like to share with you.
Okay.
It says, "Dear Mr. DePerno, we have done extensive DNA work on you and the person known as Jerry. You are not the father. However, we can't figure out who you are to begin with. So I'm not the father, as I was accused last week of. So I will stand corrected, but we will be in search for Jerry's father. That is the quest that we're going to find now.
Awesome.
The quest for Jerry's father.
Jerry Daddy.
Jerry's dad. Who's Jerry's daddy? Not baby daddy, but Jerry's daddy. We're going to find Jerry's daddy.
I can't wait to see how that goes.
Right. So, Tara, what do you have to kick us off tonight?
Oh, well, Katie, today I have for you, the meme shows us how the pyramids were built using advanced alien knowledge. And as the worker lifts a huge stone, the alien is instructing him to make sure he bends at the knees.
He doesn't want him to hurt that back. Oh, my goodness.
That's advanced alien knowledge. It takes a lot of knowledge to get to that point. But what I also found interesting is on eBay, I found from Alabama's the Mobile Register dated February 20th, 1952. This is a complete original newspaper that contains a front page headline reporting that flying saucers and UFOs have been spotted over the Korean Peninsula at this time during the Korean War. You can kind of see it there in the upper left-hand corner there. These flying globe-shaped objects were described as about 3 feet in diameter, generally light orange in color with an occasional change to a bluish tint, which that's kind of interesting. But the object remained with the B-29 bomber over Wonsan for about 5 minutes, another about 1 minute with the B-29 bomber over Suncheon. Both were in Korea. So during the height of this incident, the Army announced that it was experimenting with disc-shaped containers of synthetic rubber to supply troops in the field with water, gasoline, and other liquids. However, any connections between the Army experiments and what the bombers saw wasn't disclosed. So this complete newspaper can be found on where else but eBay, where you can find almost anything. Right. So I just find that's
like the Foo Fighters. I mean, I think Bob would be interested. I mean, we had Bob on last week, and he's really into these orbs, and it sounds like the same sort of thing, doesn't it, Chris? Like the Foo Fighters.
I want to get him one for Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great Christmas gift. Old newspaper
get him
orbs.
And so,
you want to give them the
orbs. All through history, orbs have been around. It's not anything, we've seen them in World War II. We've seen them over Korea. We've seen them over all different countries, especially when conflicts are happening. We even seen them over in Ukraine now. They say they've seen orbs with the fighting going on there. So are they scout ships? Are they picking up intelligence on us? Who knows?
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. So, well, I think maybe who might be behind the blue orbs are these little fun things. This large bright green alien head is a paranormal pop, and this one is vanilla flavored with silver metallic eyes, nose, and mouth. And customized colors and flavors, the gluten-free options can be found at paranormalpops.com. That was good, Katie.
I just noticed his nose is cockeyed.
He's not happy.
He is. He's frowning.
Well,
if somebody was going to take a big chunk out of you, Katie, how happy would you be?
I'd be happy if I were the one taking the chunk out, because yummy vanilla, that sounds good. So I know, that's great. So, and also everyone, don't forget to fuel up. So
right here.
Yeah, so fuel up. Make sure you can try wake, play, and rest. They're wonderful hydration system for your immune support and rejuvenation. So you can wake, play, and rest come in different flavors, and you can go to fuelup.gg/MUFON to find out special offers. And fuel up, everyone. So, Chris, what good stuff do you have for us today?
Actually, I only have one news story this week because I found it very interesting and very informative. You know, folks, normally I would try to find something that's crazy in the UFO stories, and you know, every week I put them. And I put a little humor in the ufology because ufology is getting crazy. No question about that. Each week someone comes up with another unbelievable story, and a lot of them are unbelievable. But this week I ran across this video, an interview with Tucker Carlson about UFOs. Now, for those who don't know who Tucker Carlson is, he's extremely interested in ufology. During his time reporting on this, I have found his reporting to be both informative and accurate when it comes to UFOs. So when I saw this video of an interview with Tucker talking about UFOs, I was shocked from what he had to say. Why? Because I've been actually talking about this for over a year. I knew the federal government has been interviewing citizens, pilots, commercial airline pilots, all kinds of people who have had alien encounters. And those physical injuries they sustained with those encounters. Right. Now, people have had encounters and they claim to have been healed from disease, gained knowledge. Mm-hmm. Now, all of that may be true. I don't know. But the majority of the encounters that I have talked to people have been frightening, terrifying, and of course, a lot of them have been left with both mental and physical effects that last for a lifetime.
I can't wait to talk to Melinda about this too, because Melinda really knows a lot about this subject. So I can't wait to get her opinion on that. So politics aside, we're just going here for the UFO content only. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. There's no politics to this. But
right. Yeah.
As I was saying, we all want to believe that they reveal themselves that the world would change. Really, because if this advanced race was so good, why not come down and stop the destruction of the human race? Now, everybody's been asking that question. If they want to come down and stop this, they can stop it immediately. And folks, I encourage anyone of a healthy debate on this, because the only way we're going to find answers is to have a healthy debate, because I certainly don't have the answers. But I am concerned that our encounters have been frightening, terrifying, and leaving scars for people who in their lives. So here in this video with Tucker Carlson and his take on alien encounters, let's roll that video.
Okay.
And it was only in the past 5 years when all this evidence would emerge, and I'd be like, well, that's not true. It doesn't seem true to me. Like, I don't know what the truth is, but I can tell when someone's lying. It's my one gift. And I would see these people lying, and I'd be like, why are they lying? Like, I know they're lying, but why? And so I really came to this, like, at the age of 50. Like, that's very late. It's like, I never for a second thought UFOs.
What changed your attitude at 50?
The evidence.
Which is what?
Well, oh my gosh. The Pentagon was required by the last defense authorization bill to, like, produce some of their files on UFOs, and it turns out they have known about this since the end of the Second World War, which ended in 1945. Been a huge increase during that war, during the war as well. Huge increase in UFO sightings, in UFO crashes, and it turns out the federal government has been tracking this for 80 years and lying about it. So why? Well, that's a great question, and I can't answer it. Theories, but I don't know. But here's what I learned. The first question is this real? Or am I just being a crazy person who's spending too much time on the internet? Well, this summer, we got a call. We didn't reach out. This person called us. Lexi, who's standing right there, who's a genius, one of our producers, gets this call from this guy who's a tenured Stanford medical school professor. And he wants to come on the show. Now, this guy has a couple patents, and so he's rich. And he's got tenure at one of the most prestigious schools in the world. So, like, he's not a flake. He comes on, and he's like, 11 years ago, the U.S. government reached out to me because I'm an expert on head injuries, on brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries. As a physician, they had all these court cases from families of U.S. servicemen, over 100, who'd been killed by UFOs. The Department of Defense was refusing to give them death benefits or medical benefits. And he's like, so they're in the courts. And I was like, there are over 100 servicemen killed by UFOs? Like, what? He's like, yeah. And there are court cases about it. I'm like, why isn't this on the front page of the New York Times? I don't know. But he goes, I'm involved in it. I'm the I'm one of the researchers. I'm the expert witness in these cases. Holy shit. What does that mean? And he's like, for example, UFOs appear to be attracted for whatever reason to nuclear energy. So at nuclear missile bases in the upper Midwest, for example, nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, nuclear-powered submarines are all getting buzzed by these objects, including underwater. And in a number of cases, these things have landed on military bases, including famously in Germany, in West Germany in the 70s. And servicemen have approached them. Like, what is this thing? There's this like giant glowing thing on the base. And they approach and they get traumatic brain injury. Like they are rendered. They get brain damage or they're killed. And he studied their brains. And they have, this is all totally real. This is the Department of Defense, dude. And they've all had this damage from some kind of powerful energy that we cannot identify. So then this guy's like, wow, he's just a scientist. He never believed in UFOs. He's like, this is real. I cannot believe this is real. This is like crazy. He should do research on it. He's still at Stanford. And it turns out that actually, yes, these things have been shot down and crashed, and the U.S. government has the wreckage, and it's being held by defense contractors, Raytheon, Lockheed, which are big independent companies, but that work for the U.S. government. They're really part of the Department of Defense, but they're separate. So their sunshine laws don't apply to them. You can't actually get information from them. It's a very tricky way to hide information. And they have the wreckage from these crafts. And I'm like, really? Are we positive these aren't like advanced Russian or Chinese? No, of course not.
Is it more like the government or whatever is just this good at hiding it, or people just don't care?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I think it's too big for people to metabolize. Like, if Prince Harry says something stupid, everyone's like, I can't believe Prince Harry. Because, like, that's manageable. You can, like, oh, this douchey fake prince with his stupid wife from Santa Monica. Like, I get that. But the idea that we're not alone in the universe and we're getting buzzed by these objects whose behavior defies physics, like, that just explodes too many categories in my head. I just can't deal with it. And I think that's part of it. But I'll tell you this, the most interesting from my perspective, I don't know if it's a consensus, but a lot of people, serious people, not crazy people, who study this stuff, U.S. government employees, seem to believe that these objects are coming from under the oceans. So the conventional view is they're coming in from outer space. There's not actually a lot of, something enters the atmosphere, we can see it on satellite, and there's not any evidence of that, actually. Maybe it's happening, but we don't know that it is. There's a lot of evidence these things are coming out of the ocean, including videotape of these objects coming out of the water at high speed, or even more amazing, descending at Mach 3 into the water. And then, of course, we have a huge submarine fleet. What the fuck? Then we have a huge submarine fleet, American, but also Chinese and Russian, underwater with pretty sensitive measurement devices, sonar, etc. And they have recorded these objects doing hundreds of knots underwater. So, let's just stop there.
Wait, what's knots?
It's 1.1 miles per hour. It's a way that we measure objects in the water. It's 1.1 miles. It's a little more than mile per hour. And a mile is a measurement that we use in the United States.
Right.
It's distinct from a kilometer, which I think is common in Canada. But anyway, these things are moving at impossibly high speeds. So let's just apply common sense for 1 second. If I take a 45 ACP, a 45 caliber handgun and fire it at you underwater in, say, a swimming pool, 50 feet away, you can catch the bullet because the resistance is so strong from the water that objects can't move that fast underwater. We know that. But they are, and they're moving without any visible means of propulsion. So no wake, no bubbles.
Where have we tracked that?
All over the
A lot to unpack there,
Amazing.
I would say. So he covered a lot there.
But if you look at what he says everything that's been said by scientists. First of all, he talks about a scientist at Stanford University, doesn't name him, but we all know that Gary Nolan works at Stanford University, and he has said the same thing as Tucker Carlson, that he has investigated MRIs from pilots who have encountered UFOs and now have traumatic brain injury. They have white
Havana
spots in the
syndrome,
brain
right? Is that Havana syndrome? Is that what they're studying?
It's similar to Havana syndrome, but it is not the Havana syndrome, because Havana syndrome is man-made, was started in the Russians in 1952, and they used microwaves. We don't know what frequency that these propulsion systems or these encounters are using. We don't know if it's telepathic. We don't know if it's the craft itself. Perhaps electromagnetic plasma is something. But whatever it is, we know that people who've had alien encounters have had physical injuries and mental injuries from their encounters. Not all, because there are reports of people who've had healings, have had good encounters have had educational systems, but we don't know the extent of the alien encounter to that, and as opposed to some type of covert military operation that we've all talked about before. So I would say that what Tucker is saying about USOs, we know for a fact, even Mark D'Antonio talks about his time on a submarine and having a fast mover. We have had talks where other people have seen pilots and everything else, seen Commander Fravor and everything else have objects going in the water at incredible speeds. So it's very interesting that Tucker Carlson would actually put that out there. And I think he's dead accurate that there are actually some things that can be harmful, maybe intentionally or not intentionally, but it's still harmful.
Yeah, sometimes. Excellent segue. I mean, what's your opinion on all this, Tara?
Oh, I find it fascinating. And I just think there's a lot of answers in our oceans. And I wish it was easier for us to go fast underwater and go deep underwater, because I think there might be something down there. It's cool.
Even the creatures down there. I love those documentaries where, they look so alien, or how they light up and all that.
Oh,
like, those
beautiful.
Are aliens,
yes,
sure.
I know.
I think this is a great segue, really, because we're not doing Case of the Week, and Bob couldn't get with us this week. So I think these are all excellent questions to talk to Melinda about, because she truly is an expert on a lot of these topics. So let's go ahead and read Melinda's bio and get her on the show here. So Melinda Leslie is an investigator in the UFO field with 34 years of experience and has researched individuals involved in its cover-up for 30 plus of those years. For 12 years, she has been the owner of UFO Sighting Tours in Sedona, Arizona, where she has conducted over 1,620 tours with the use of military night vision goggles. Melinda is a UFO abductee and has been public with both her own extraterrestrial and covert ops human abduction experiences for 32 years. She is considered by many to be the authority on military and intelligence agency interest and involvement in UFO extraterrestrial abduction cases. Her extensive abduction research and personal experience have been featured in 30 books by prominent authors in ufology. Melinda appears in the documentaries Extraordinary, The Seeding, and Extraordinary Revelations about the ET abduction phenomenon. She also appears in the new feature-length UFO disclosure documentary Accidental Truth, which you can find right now on all pay-per-view channels. So I hope you guys go to her UFOsightings.tours.com if you're ever out there in that Sedona area. Melinda does an amazing job doing that. She's also going to be conducting one of her Sky Watches out there at Contact in the Desert. We can ask her about that. I believe she's doing that Sunday night, but we'll ask her to be sure. So please welcome to the show, Melinda Leslie. Hi, Melinda.
Hi,
Thank
everyone.
you so much for being here. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, very excited.
So I actually would just want to start off with you, like something that was brought up in that video. I mean, you've had personal abduction encounters. I want to ask you when those started for you. And I want to talk about this thing that, for some, it's very fearful. It maybe starts fearful and transitions into something more spiritual and not so fearful. And I want to know what your personal experiences with that is, how that's worked for you personally.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I know.
How long is this show, Katie? An hour? Oh, my goodness. Are we
hour and a half? We have an hour and a half. Yeah, hour and a half.
Okay. I ended up canceling a tour tonight because it's too cloudy. We're actually expecting rain. And unfortunately, I had a full group tonight, but had to cancel. So I'm all yours if you guys want me for 3 hours.
Honestly, we can talk about this topic forever.
Some of these questions you're asking me aren't short and simple, answers.
Right.
Okay, so going back to my abduction stuff, did I understand, Katie, you were kind of asking?
Yes. I started at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know that part of you. I mean, I know what an expert you are in all these documents, and thank goodness for people like you who do that, but I don't know that personal side of you with all your bits.
And quite frankly, became involved in the field because of my experience as well. Okay, I'll go back to the beginning. Now, a lot of people listening, if they've heard my story, may have heard some of this, but for those people that haven't, it's a long story. And you were also asking its impact it's had on my life. I mean, like I said, it's because I'm in the field now and do research, but also it's, it impacted me in every way. I go through periods where I feel it's very, very difficult to live with having experiences. It's very isolating. I mean, thank God for the MUFON ERT, team and what they're doing to help people. I'm so grateful that they're doing that. And it's a tremendous service. And I'm glad that MUFON has been, providing that now for a couple of years and has a variety of great people at the helm of that group.
Including our own Christopher DePerno, here.
Yeah,
and I have to say, Melinda, Melinda, the personal impacts of this phenomenon. And it can, it's abduction, contact, but it can also be sightings that are, this affects people very personally.
Oh, yeah.
And often for a lifetime. So for you to talk about how this affected you personally, I think is almost more important than the experience itself. Because so many people are dealing with this and that you don't know how to deal with it when you're faced with it.
I have this weird dichotomy of I do my tours and there's having sightings every night and how my clients respond to that, combined with the knowledge I have from my own personal experiences. And it's weird. I'm constantly having to kind of bounce between these two. And often, my clients on my tours will say, because it says in the literature and stuff, if you ask her nicely about her experiences, she'll get into them. And some people know a little bit about me or enough, and have watched some videos or something online and they know enough to be dangerous, because they'll say, oh, we want to hear about your abductions. And I have this weird thing where I'm like, I want to answer their question, be truthful and everything. Of course, I'm always mindful if like children are present on the tour because I don't want to scare the what out of people, and yet realizing too, like sometimes I feel like sharing my own experiences is like my personal traumatic and very deeply personal experiences are not for somebody else's entertainment, and yet I have on there asked me, so I have to kind of fight that and go, look, I'm here to educate people and enlighten them and help other people who've had experience.
Just share with what you're comfortable sharing. Here with
you guys, fine.
But I totally get it.
This is new. This is, this crowd, no problem. But to my clients where I don't know where their belief system is at and how much knowledge they have. And someone could ask me who's looked me up online and seen some stuff or followed some of my research. And I could have other people on the same tour who go, oh, you mean abductions are real? Ha ha ha. And it's like, and I get both. And so I'm always going to share it with evidence and whatnot, because my point is, if I'm talking about even my own personal stuff, it's like, let's use it as a way to educate people and have them know it's a very real thing, that there is evidence for it. And so I'm kind of, if anything, I'm kind of hell bent on doing that, and yet, and having to fight that I have this feeling like my experiences aren't for your entertainment, and so it's this weird kind of balancing act I do where at times I'm and then even on interviews like this, like I offered Katie when you asked me, I'm like, I have a lot of people asking about my abductions lately, and yet here I'm doing lectures at conferences and stuff coming up where I'm not being asked to do that a lot. Now, they offered me 2 lecture spots at, not at Contact in the Desert, I'm doing one there, and a workshop, well, not really a workshop, a special event, Skywatch thing I'll talk about, but at the Roswell Festival. And so I am doing one on my abduction experiences because they really wanted that. And I'm also doing the same one I'm doing at Contact in the Desert, which is a disclosure lecture and about the Wilson Davis documents. And, so I'm, and I was glad that Roswell Festival's having me do both,
That's
now
nice.
people going one day are going to think one thing about me and going another day, because it's almost like in this field, you almost have to specialize. First off, there's too much data and too much information to be too broad. And secondly, it confuses people. It's like, oh, well, do you do tours? Are you a public abductee? Are you a disclosure document resurrecher? It's like, can I be all three?
You're gobbling it all up. Just
I know.
You're multifaceted.
Well, I am multitask. That's perfect, Katie. I'm multitasking in ufology, that's for sure. But it's like but it speaks also to the complexity of the subject,
Right.
It's
Sure does.
That's the reality of the subject. It is multiple things. It's not just sightings, as MUFON well knows. It's not. Right. And so it gets into these other areas. And then I do this real more obscure thing that I hate to say it's even more obscure, but in the research field, I know it is. And to the general public, they're like, what? And it's yet something I've been researching for 35 years, which is the MILAB subject, the covert human involvement, which is
I really want to get into that too. Yeah, that's fascinating to me.
Like I said, you guys, these are probably, and not I'm asking to be on multiple shows or anything, but truth is, there's no way in an hour and a half to cover all this subject matter, but we'll touch upon it. But going back to, since you asked about my experiences, and do you want me to tell like how I found that out and everything?
Yeah, I would like your first experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything started. How do I do this and not take up the whole show? Okay. Everything started in 1989. Now, I've been having experiences my whole life. My discovery process started in 1989 with a fluke of a last-minute trip out to Area 51 in Nevada. And it was right when the Bob was. Now, I'm not going to give all that background because I assume people listening to this know the basics. I'm going to make that assumption for time, and everyone can look up this data if you're unfamiliar. But Bob Lazar, the research scientist working out at Area 51, was getting harassment from a supervisor, and he ended up confiding in a real estate broker, Gene Huff, his friend, and Gene Huff had, I guess, appraised the house for researcher John Lear and introduced them. And then Lear eventually went into George Knapp's office and shared this with him. So that's kind of the crash course on Bob Lazar. But he didn't have any desire necessarily to go public. But he was having this harassment from his boss. Anyways, so he told John Lear. John Lear said, well, what evidence and whatnot do you have for this? And Bob said, well, the best thing I can do is take you out there and show you test flights of craft in our possession that we're flying on a regular basis. And we can go to the outskirts of the base. And I know when the scheduled test flights are, and I can show you that. So he took John Lear out there and Gene Huff, and eventually a few other researchers, people that Lear knew, long story short. And they were going out there seeing these test flights of craft. And so Lear went on a radio show being broadcast out of Vegas at the time called Billy Goodman's The Happening. And so he goes on there and shares his experience. Can you guys hear me okay? Are we okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Feel you great. Yeah, great.
Great.
I'm riveted.
Things, and I thought, oh God, if they're trying to contact me because there's a technical thing, I'm like, oh no, I'm not saying all this. And
We're interested.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so just my phone's going off. Anyway, so of course, as soon as I go to do a show, of course.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so going back to so a friend of mine was into Native American stuff. She had come across this radio program because they had Native American elders on. Suddenly, all of a sudden, like overnight, Billy Goodman switches and he has John Lear on, talking about Lazar, talking about going out there and having these sightings. And the producer of the show had so many people calling in, they decided to let's plan a trip out there. We're going to rent these 2 buses. People can meet us and sign up and go on these buses. And we'll take them from a casino parking lot in Vegas out to the 2.5 hours later out to Rachel, Nevada, and Highway 375 and the back entrance to the base, Groom Road, and the black mailbox, Medlin Ranch Road. It's all
That's fun.
Famous in the lore. And and we'll do this. Well, my friend said, let's do it. She had come across this on one week, listened to it a couple nights, called me on a Monday, had me listen Monday and Tuesday night. Tuesday night, they announced they're going to take these buses out there. And Friday, we're driving to Vegas to go meet up with these folks. I mean, that's how fast this all happened. And I'm like, what are we doing? She was a paralegal. I was an office manager. We were both due time off at our various jobs. And so we go out there and we had amazing sightings. I mean, mind-boggling, great stuff. Dropping out through, there were some storm clouds above us that night. They were dropping through the clouds, like lighting them up, dropping through them, stopping under them, doing the famous falling leaf pattern to the ground, or shooting off at an angle, stop, and then going down behind the base. And it was like, what are we watching? And there's whack-and-hut security vehicles out and around and black helicopters in the air. We joined up out there. We didn't make it in time to be able to be with the buses. We were like 2 hours behind them. But we get out there, there's the 2 buses and about 40 or 50 cars and all these people watching this. And there's 2 sheriff's vehicles out, 2 sheriffs out there in their squad cars or whatever, and we're talking to the sheriffs going, you see this often? And they go, yeah, like every night,
Wow.
What the heck? And suddenly I had all these belief systems just like mind blown, paradigm change, where I was like, okay, UFOs absolutely exist. Now I'd had maybe a sighting as a child. That was always a questionable thing. And then I had a sighting in 1987 on a trip. I now live in Sedona, Arizona. I'm doing this from my office in Sedona. It's a map of UFO sightings there and UFO books there. Anyways, it's a mind blowing having these sightings out there, and I forget what I was saying about.
You're on 1987. You're on a trip.
Yeah. So. Oh, thank you. My train of thought. Okay.
Okay.
So I needed more sleep than I had last night, I think. But okay, going back. So 87, I had taken a trip here to Sedona before I lived here. And with a large group of people, we were at a channeling event, someone received a message. If we go outside, from ETs, there would be a flyover. We went outside, there were like 40 or 50 people. This person had a long driveway where his cars were parked. We pile out in the driveway and boom, we had 3 large amber lights, separate objects in a perfect triangle formation, come in really fast, slow down, hover right over us, and then shoot off. And so it was amazing sighting that all the people in the driveway. So kudos to the person who received that message, because that was accurate. We had a great sighting. So at that point, I'm like, okay, and I'm with all these other people. We talked about it. It was very exciting. So I'm like, okay, I definitely had that sighting and possibly another as a kid. So one when I was very little, from the rear window of our house. I grew up in Palos Verdes, California. And so I'm pretty sure I had a sighting then. But regardless, this time I knew for certain. So all of a sudden here I'm going, wow, okay, I'd had sightings, but nothing like this, nothing like I was having at Area 51. And it was so incredibly exciting that we made the whole trip 2 weeks later and then a month after that. So in roughly a 2-month period, September and October of 1989, I took 3 back-to-back trips over a 2-month period, sat out many nights in a row on each trip, having sightings out near Area 51, the black mailbox in that road. So, and something about having those sightings was like inserting a key and turning it, because I started to have memories come forward of childhood, young child, older child, teenage, and adult abduction experiences. And at first I thought, I'm totally losing my mind. And kind of 2 things happened simultaneously. One is I met on each trip out there to Area 51, I met researchers. One of those people was Bill Hamilton, who's very well known in MUFON circles. And Bill the late Bill Hamilton. And so he was out there, and I met him. He lived in LA. I was coming from Orange County, California. He had a monthly lecture series in LA. I started to go to that. And talking to him, and then he referred me to a regression therapist, Dr. Deborah Troncalli, a full-fledged PhD in psychotherapy, Dr. Troncalli, and I started to go to her, and I was having these memories come up, and then all of a sudden I had a current, brand new, present day experience in late 89, maybe early 90. I'm not sure of the exact date. I think it was either like November, December, or January, right in that period. Mm-hmm. And I had a roommate at the time. I had two roommates, Scott and Gail. Scott was out of town on business, long story short. Gail was going through a divorce, and so she was living with us because, she needed a place to live. And one night we have a discussion about what she's going through with her divorce and stuff. I was kind of helping her. I was an office manager at the time. I had to work early the next morning. I go to bed. And so meanwhile, prior to this, it was mostly some past memories, with the exception of, because of Bill Hamilton, I went to a lecture he did with some abductees in Newport Beach just prior to this, and met an abductee who became kind of famous in the 90s. Her name was Leisha Davidson. And she when I met her, she'd had a recent abduction, and we're sitting in a Denny's restaurant, and I had just told Bill I thought I had, and something had happened, and I had marks on my body. Well, it turns out she had an abduction the same night. And she lived in the Pasadena area. Here I was in Newport Beach, and we're sitting in a Denny's after, I think it was a MUFON presentation that in fact it was, that they were speaking at, and we went out to Denny's afterwards. Anyways, I'm sitting in the Denny's, and Leisha and I are comparing marks on our body.
Oh, wow.
And we had needle
marks.
What
did these marks
bruises.
Look like? Yeah. What did the marks look like?
We both had marks on both ankles, like as if restrained by the ankles. Both of us had marks on, like, our ankle bones on both feet. She had them too. We had marks on our thighs, like bruises, and some needle marks, a triangular pattern of needle marks. And what was crazy is we had like matching marks. And it was like, what? Yeah. I don't know if that means we were taken together. I do not know. I've never investigated that particular experience. But so that had happened. And then meanwhile, short period of time later, like this was all within a couple months, after having this late night discussion, like I said, with my roommate Gail, Scott's out of town, I go and sit in my bed, and I had to get up early because I had a deadline, and I was supposed to go to bed at like 10, and we ended up talking to like midnight, and I'm like, oh no, my alarm's going to go off at 6:30. If I fall asleep right away, I'm only going to get 6.5 hours of sleep. But I had to be in work. I was an office manager. I had a deadline on a project, and I sat my alarm next to me. I was sitting on my bed. I'm one of those people, I'll double, triple check an alarm, and I sat there and I did a quick little like breathing exercise just to make sure. Back then I wouldn't have taken anything to help me sleep, but I'm like, okay, I need to just, go to bed right away. And so I did this little meditation thing, very brief, just visualization really. And I go back in my covers, back on my elbows, I reach to turn off the light, and it's 2.5 hours later. And there's no way I was sitting on my bed for 2.5 hours. I'm like, and I was double checking my alarm. I'm like, what has happened? There's no way. And so eventually I calmed myself down. I said, but I couldn't get this image out of my head. I said, what have you done for 2.5 hours? You haven't been sitting on your bed. I thought I'd been sitting on my bed for less than 2 minutes. I'm like, I need to get to sleep right away. Now it's 2.5 hours later. I'm going to get, less than 4 hours sleep. What? And so, 3 hours sleep. And so I calm myself down. I luckily fall asleep right away. My alarm goes off, waking the dead. I get into work, I get through the day. I come home and I'm in the kitchen. I'm making myself dinner, and Gail is there making herself dinner. And she says, what happened to you last night? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, after our discussion, she couldn't sleep. So she sat up in bed reading. She kept hearing noises downstairs. We had a 2-story townhouse, bedrooms are upstairs. And she goes, I kept hearing noises. So I kept going and looking, knowing Scott's out of town, knowing I bitched about having to get to bed right away, right? So she's like, okay, I knew you had gone to bed. You had to get up right away. And so she's like, it's like 3 a.m. I go downstairs. There's nothing there. I come up. I notice your light is on under your door. And so she knocks on my door. No answer. Knocks on my door. No answer. Now she's just trying to find out if that was me downstairs, or because she went looking and she goes, did someone come in? What's going on? So she's getting paranoid, and she knocks harder. No answer. Now she's afraid something happened to me. So she pounds on my door. Again, no answer. So she goes in my room. I'm not there. She went in my room during my missing time.
Wow.
But then there's more. So she goes in my room during my missing time. She goes back downstairs, goes in her room, is reading. And then she said, eventually she left the door open to the hallway, and she sees a flash of light in the hallway. And this flash of light, she looks to the hallway expecting to see me, and stepping out of the darkness of the hallway, because she thought maybe I'd flip the switch really quick. Stepping out of the darkness of the hallway she's sitting on her bed reading, completely conscious. Walking to her room is a gray.
Wow.
Gray. And she said it looks right at her. It turns. And after going in my room, she closed the door. She said, Melinda, it went through your door like a knife through butter. She goes, it was physically there, but it went through your door as if your door wasn't there. So here she went in my room during the missing time to notice and, witness I was gone, but then fully conscious sees a gray walk into her room, turn, and go into my room. Now, she had read Communion by Whitley Strieber prior to that. I had not, but I'd heard of it. And she goes, are you having experiences like that guy who Whitley, and I go, I don't know. And she goes, she apparently owned the book because it had been a bestseller just right before that in like 85, 86, right? When it came out. So she's like, Melinda, and this was like 89, so she goes, I have that book. I've read it twice. She says, I'm telling you, you're having experiences like that guy. I mean, now it turns out she had a 14-year-old daughter.
Are those pictures? I don't mean to interrupt you, but you just sent some pictures. Are those pictures of the leg bruises? Is that from this encounter?
No, that's
that's something else. Encounters. Okay, so you can cue us for any pictures you sent. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So I know I sent a bunch because I'm like, I don't know which things we're going to talk about. So I think I sent like 15 to 20 pictures. I don't know.
So if there's a picture you wanted us to bring up, if you can mention
unfortunately, I don't have anything from this experience. I just have some general stuff. Maybe before the end, we can go through them quickly if they don't come up during it. Like if you guys can ask if any do come up that I bring up, and you can separate those out or something, and then leave just the other ones we can flip through at the end. But so long story short on that is so here she witnesses, and then like I started to say, she had a 14-year-old daughter that came to live with us for a while. Now I was told at the time. It was like summer break. The 14 wanted to come be with the mom. She normally lived with the dad because that's where her school was and everything. Okay. And then I was told she came and lived with us for like 3 months, just a long visit, and then left. And I was told after like 3, maybe 4 months, she went back because she missed her dad and her school friends. She had to go back to school. And then years later, I run into Gail somewhere, long story short, and we get together many years after being roommates, like 10 years later. And she said, and her daughter's name was Angie. She goes, why do you think Angie moved out? Because she's asked me about my experiences and stuff. So 10 years later, it's coming up. And I said, well, now I'm a researcher and I work with people. And, I've gone a long ways in the subject. And even then, because it was in the 90s or whatever, so she goes, it might have been 6 or 7 years later because it was still in the 90s when I ran into her. Anyways, so and I said, yeah, I've done this and this and this. And she goes, oh, I'm so glad you know that now. And I go, what do you mean? I know that now, And she said, well, when Angie came and visited, she said, why do you think she left? And I said, well, she had to go back to school and she missed her dad and her friends. And she said, well, actually, her dad was abusing her. And I went, why? Why'd she go back? And she said, well, she goes, I didn't want you guys to be concerned. But she said, she actually went to live with my sister. And I said, well, why didn't you tell Scott and I? We would have insisted, if her
Mm-hmm.
father was abusing her, we would have insisted she stay with us. And she said, well, what was happening is Angie was witnessing my experiences, and it so scared her. She was being woken up during the night by stuff happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Angie got so freaked out by what was happening to you, she left to go live with my sister. So here she gets abused by her dad, comes to be with her mom, and then has to go live with her aunt because she's freaked out by what's happening to me. I was like, oh my God. And she was 14 at the time. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry, But anyway, so, so I had those early witnesses, and then jumping ahead, besides those accounts, because there were a few other things, but a significant one that happened right after that was the following July in 1990. I'm driving on a road trip with two friends of mine. Now, these ones I do have two brief sketches of, because back then, an artist friend of mine did some brief sketches for me. And so I think I gave you guys that. There's a picture of the car on the side of the road with the mountain. Yeah, that's one of them. So an artist friend of mine. Now, the craft wasn't like that. It was more like what's called wedding cake, like larger and layered. But I didn't go into the detail of what the craft looked like for this friend of mine. But my friends, Steve and Mike and I, those are their real names, we were driving on a road trip on a mountain road, and we had a significant period of missing time, and we were abducted from the car, and they remembered it too. At the time, I was working with Dr. Troncalli, and I eventually went to her to get regressed over this. The guys were dragging their feet, but it took about a year for them to go get regressed. And then there's one of the three of us on exam tables too. There's another picture I think I gave you where we're on the exam tables. No, not that one. That comes later. There's just three of us. No, three of us on it. Maybe I didn't give it to you.
Okay. I don't see it. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. I may have skipped that one. But there's just a picture of three of us on exam tables, Steve, Mike, and I. And everyone's going, what are those other pictures? We'll get to those. Those came later. But anyway, so there you go. So they were dragging their feet. It took about a year for both of them to go get regressed by Dr. Troncalli. Dr. Troncalli had an office in Newport Beach, California, where I was living at the time, and then the rest of the guys lived just in other areas of Southern California. Anyways, but she invited us to dinner, so we all show up. We all go out to dinner together in Newport Beach. This was about a year later, so now we're talking like 2 years after the event. And she said, I waited till I completed 3 successful regressions on each of you. Well, I didn't even know the guys kept going back for regressions with her, but they did. And she said, the guys were kind of blocked, particularly one guy, Steve, and she goes, it took some doing. But she said, once I had gotten a couple good, successful regressions, I invited you guys out to dinner, and I'm here to tell you, you're recalling the identical same experience.
Wow.
Your memories are a complete match.
Wow.
So, and I didn't even know they kept going back to her for regressions, but she said, yeah, our memories were a complete match. Now, anyway, so that's the beginning, and so stuff kept happening. I've had different roommates witness stuff. I've been taken in what are called mass abductions, me with other people. Here, since I brought that up, you can bring up the group of us on tables. You just showed that picture. That one is, I drew that picture. It was really hard work. I'm not an artist, but I really worked hard. Thank you. I worked very, very, very hard.
Artwork is hard.
Yeah, I worked very hard for a long, long time on that. Because it was done with pencil, and then I went over it with pen later, and blah, 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 blah. That picture I did because I was one of the cases involved. I work now with Yvonne Smith. Deborah Troncalli passed away years ago, and so now I work with hypnotherapist Yvonne Smith, well known in the field, and her CERO. I'm very involved in her CERO, Close Encounter Resource Organization group, and I was one of the people involved in the Coronado incident, which happened at the Hotel del Coronado in Coronado, California, San Diego. In 90, I don't remember the year now, I think it was 94, we had a mass abduction from the Hotel Del. We were all there for a very important abduction study conference. I think by HCT, I forget the name of the group that did that, but it was very famous at the time. And they had all these major researchers in the field. And we had a mass abduction from the Hotel del Coronado. And the first person to write a book about it was researcher Preston Dennett, who had researched about 5 people involved. Well, over the years, more people came forward. Those 5 people did work with Yvonne. She was the hypnotherapist. And I was one of those people. So she ended up writing a book called Coronado about the event. And I'm one of the chapters in that book.
Oh, that's so interesting. Melinda, we have, before we take our break here, but you bring up something kind of that's been curious to me. And that is these, even at last year's MUFON symposium in Denver, we had a really compelling sighting right over the hotel of an unknown craft. And there was controversy whether, I was
there at that conference, but I missed being part of that, man.
Right. So, I mean, is that, in a minute and a half, can you speak about, is this a common thing that happens at these different, gatherings and events? Does this happen often?
I don't know that it happens often at conferences, but it happens every once in a while. There's some kind of famous events where that happened. Obviously, the Coronado one, because that's now been included in 2 books, Preston Dennett and Yvonne Smith's. But at the little Alien, which had these little what are called friendship camp-out conferences, there were a couple of events from there of groups of people taken. There was one back when in the Bob Brown days of producing the Brown family and Wendell Stevens of producing International UFO Congress before it was taken over by Open Minds and now by Karen Barrett. But before all that, in one of the later year ones, there was a mass abduction from that conference, and it came up because they were having support groups in the morning of the conferences and evenings. They were having those, large, like conferences often do, a large support group. And I think that night it was won by, I think Mary Rodwell was leading it, if I remember. It was either her or Barbara Lamb, or maybe even both of them together. And people started sharing this abduction that had happened. And a few people said, it's really weird. I think I had something happen last night. And more people started saying, well, I do too. And then my roommate at the conference, I was sharing my room with someone else attending the conference. And it turns out we both had remembered something. So
that's amazing.
And that experience was the first time I remember seeing mounted beings. And by the way,
we have to cut it and take a quick break real quick, but I want to talk more about this when we get on the other side of the break. So we'll see you guys in 3 minutes.
I know. A lot.
Cool.
I have some comments about that. So cool.
Yeah.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
MUFON is the voice of thousands of like-minded people who want to see change. We speak up against UFO secrecy. We engage governments and agencies around the world on the topic. We share information with the public through our journal, website, newsletters, social media, and even our own TV channel. When you join MUFON, you add your voice to the cause. Few things are more important in our time than understanding the UFO question. Join MUFON. Find your friends.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy. I'm going to take it for the play. I'm going to take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected. Only at kgradb.com.
All right. Is that my phone or yours, Melinda?
That's not me.
That might be my phone.
But I was just looking at mine. I just got texted an image. Friends of mine who came to visit a week ago. Long story short, they from Canada, and 2 guys I know, and there were multiple return clients who we become very good friends. And they came and they wanted to do a Jeep tour. So one of our Jeep tour companies has this really fun, rugged one where you're like rock climbing in a Jeep. Oh, it's like it's fun and scary. It's really super fun though. And my friend's a professional photographer. He had his good camera out there, and he's taking a bunch of pictures, but he handed this to the Jeep driver one time. We're sitting on a rock formation, and he got some great pictures of us with rock towers, red rock towers behind us. Classic Sedona tour, picture.
Right.
But my friend said, I think I got an object. Well, he just sent it to me, and I had to blow it up, but sure enough, I think there's a craft in the corner of the picture. Now, It's just a tiny thing, but it's such a clear picture, such clear blue sky. And the angle of lighting is correct for sun glinting off of actual object. So it doesn't appear, I'm good now at this. I've been in the field for 35 years. So, I've had, thousands of people show me pictures, and I think it's an object that's there. It doesn't look like a bird because it looks like a metallic thing glinting. Now, fortunately, it's small and fairly high up, but it's a clear picture. It's the only thing in the sky, in a clear blue sky, and I think it's great. And it would have been, for those familiar with Sedona, if you're familiar with Chapel of the Holy Cross, we were in an area called Chicken Point, and so this thing would have been like immediately over the chapel area. And and I think it's a craft. It looks like something metallic glinting. He just sent it to me just now.
Oh, wow.
That's how this works in my life. It's like every moment of every day,
Right.
Melinda, I'd like to ask you a question, because I've studied all kinds of abductions, and some of them that I've interviewed people who have seen actual military people with their abductions and possible
You and I got to talk.
Let's start right there. Let's start with, if you could tell the listeners, what is your definition of a MyLab experience, and then go into the MyLab abduction.
Well, as I'm sure you understand, it gets complicated, but I have a simple area of focus for my research, and that's people who've had extraterrestrial abduction events non-human intelligence events, then get targeted by covert human agencies because of their ET events. And so I have been researching that area I've been in the field for almost just shy of 35 years. And I've been researching that for at least, I'll say 33 of those years.
So what you're saying, I've never heard this before. So what you're saying is people who have ET contact, abduction, or contact, then are targeted by my labs. And then the one follows the other.
MILAB is a term. Famous abductee who wrote a number of books, Katarina Wilson, K. Wilson, wrote Alien Jigsaw and a few others. Okay. And is still behind the scenes in the field, not as active as she was years ago, but I think she keeps an active website. I haven't looked in a while, but I think she does. Kay Wilson coined that term. She said, gosh, it's like I'm not only abducted by ETs, I get abducted by the military. So there's ET abduction, but then there's military abduction. So she coined that word MILAB, M-I-L for military and AB for abduction. And then Helmut Lammer, a Austrian researcher, him and his wife, Helmut and Marion Lammer, was investigating it. And they asked Kay Wilson, if they could use the term. And she goes, well, I don't own it. I just came, it's just something to call it. And so he wrote a book called MILABs, but had borrowed that term from Kay Wilson. So my understanding, that's the history, the background of where the term came from. Now, it's been used by the mind control field and other things to represent a bunch of other stuff now. But that's why I clarify that my research is someone has to be an ET abductee first, who then has harassment, surveillance, monitoring, gets picked up, maybe interrogated, have follow-up abductions at the hands of humans because of their ET experiences.
Why would they do that?
Well, I think there is a deep, covert group of people who know much more about the subject than most people realize that the government does. Okay. I think they're covert military, black ops, covert intelligence. And the same people that, for instance, would be involved in the crash retrievals, retrieving extraterrestrial craft and the reverse engineering of that, or because of needing the technical know-how, farming it out to technology companies and aerospace companies, maybe to work
Melinda, what would they gain? I agree with you that they're probably doing some of the covert work, but what is their end game? That's
obviously
the big key right there.
I call data mining. If you think of intelligence work and the various forms of intelligence gathering, I think that those who are trying to manage the extraterrestrial presence subject, the non-human intelligence presence, that those who are involved in that and have retrieved bodies, dead and living, from craft, etc., and have these in these underground installations. I think there's exceptional evidence in support of all this, that those individuals may see the abductees as another source of intelligence because we have firsthand involvement. So and quoting one researcher in the field, East Coast researcher with support groups and everything, he said it happened to the advanced abductees. Now, not meaning those abductees are any better, but abductees with advanced cases, like evidence cases, people who've been shown technology stuff by the ETs, propulsion, navigation. A lot of those cases that have been the medical cases being looked at by the NIDS/BAS/ OSAP ATIP people. Some of those people are, because those are also usually advanced cases, also happen to be cases I've worked with for years, quite a few of them.
Melinda, so I have a question on that. So these people that the MILABs are affecting so that's kind of abduction themselves, but are they remembering these things, or are their minds wiped, or are they remembering this through hypnosis?
Well, just like the just like the ET stuff, I think our minds are incredibly powerful, possibly even limitless. And I also am a big fan of the idea of cellular memory. People are remembering these things. They remember the ET experiences, not always, but memories can be recovered, sometimes over time, whatever. And the same with the covert experiences. People remember them. I mean, I could name all sorts of names of cases of people who've had the covert stuff. Debbie Jordan has, and certainly Terry Lovelace has talked about it extensively. Whitley has had it himself, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on, but there are these people that, again, like this other researcher says, these advanced cases. These are people with a lot of evidence who've had lifetime experiences starting in childhood, and it seems that these covert individuals are searching for these people, finding them, and that there's all sorts of stuff I've done in my research. It would take quite a bit of time to go into the patterns of what might make you of interest to these individuals. But a lot of times these abductees have family members that are background in the intelligence community, in high-level military, high-level aerospace positions, high-level secret society stuff. There's all these patterns that come up that I don't think are by chance, that you could be someone that they're looking at a family history. It's well understood in abduction research. It runs in families. That's accepted in the abduction field. There's extensive evidence that it runs in families.
I've noticed that too, just in the people I've come across in interview. And I don't know, Chris, if you've run into this too, but I wanted to ask Melinda if she has that. A pretty high percentage seem to have, like you said, military, whether their grandfather, their father, themselves, within the family line. Have you noticed that, Melinda? And why do you think that would be?
But I'm not sure it's common amongst all abductees, but all MILAB abductees, people who have harassment, surveillance, monitoring, and picked up, it's absolutely common. In fact, when I do extensive interviewing of people, I have all these questions, and I get such consistent answers in them. It's just like the alien abduction researchers have their consistent questionnaires. I know MUFON has a questionnaire for people, and certainly the free organization, Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrials and Encounters, they had extensive data, from the people, and I know MUFON does in their database, the ERT people now. So there are these common traits amongst abductees, and one thing is it's running in families. Well, that also exists in the MILAB cases, because again, my MILAB cases are ET abductees first. But then this other stuff, the intelligence background stuff, the secret society stuff, intelligence background, high level military, aerospace, family backgrounds, is extensive amongst these people. I'm not surprised now when I interview someone to find that this is the case. So not only are they meeting all the criteria for alien abductions and all those questionnaires, but on top of it, they have this whole extra. Now, going back to the free organization, Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation, right? And their work, they're not so much existing now, but for a couple of years back, they were very prolific in what they were doing and writing and putting out. There's a couple books that they wrote. And it had great researchers. A lot of people we know were involved. And they ended up saying that about, I think it was 12% of the alien abductees responding to all their questionnaires were having the MILAB stuff. But I always said they were asking the wrong questions. They were getting 12%, which is still a high number of all their cases. But they were asking, like, have you been abducted by the military, and have you seen military personnel, and they weren't asking the harassment, their surveillance questions. They weren't asking about, have you seen humans working with the ETs that seem to be in an official capacity? I mean, I gave them a whole list of questions, said, you guys need a questionnaire with these things, because you're getting 12% of have you been abducted by the military? 12% of abductees, that was huge, actually. But I say, I think the numbers are going to be more like 40%. possibly higher. I have a lot of cases and a lot of researchers in the field that say we actually think it might be higher. That it's people who have the alien stuff, then have harassment and surveillance and monitoring and then are picked up and or have ET experiences where you see human military present, in the experience, particularly if you think you've been taken to an underground base. I mean, so I think they include a lot of the other questions I have that, and they're not, they're questions based upon the responses I'm getting from people. And I even have some questions to rule out. I tried to be a good researcher about it and to rule out other possibilities. So, but at one time they were going to do an online questionnaire thing and provide some of my questions. Their board accepted that, and I was an honorary board member for a while for free. I almost forget that. It was a brief while, but I was. And you go, okay, well, they were going to add on that. It just never happened. Funding and everything, it just wasn't a priority. But, the late John Mack, at one
Melinda,
time.
before you get into John Mack, I there's a question that's I want to get back to the labs with.
And I get sidetracked easily, Jerry. So you need to occasionally, reel me back in. Yeah.
No problem. So a number of abductees have claimed that they've been downloaded with information. Some have been able to get partial information through dreams and stuff. Some have not gotten any. This is a 3-part question. So my first part of the question is, have you seen abductees claim to have been downloaded with information? The second part of that
experiences?
Well, people who have been abducted claim they've been downloaded.
Yeah, like everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'd find it hard pressed to say I know of an abduction case where that didn't happen.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you that.
ETs download people first off in the event in an alien abduction. ET. I hate to say alien, extraterrestrial, or non-human intelligence. Okay, they'll get downloads of information during the event, but sometimes other times in life, that gets into some controversial areas of how much other involvement in your life other than the physical abduction experience. But, there's this kind of this idea amongst abductees, which came first, the psychic or the abductee? Are you an abductee in part because you're intuitive, or are you having increased intuitive stuff because you're an abductee? I say, does it matter? It's there.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
I think both is the answer.
Chicken or egg.
Yeah. And it's enhanced by the experiences often directly, where the ETs are literally like training you in psi stuff. But going back to, and answering your question, I think the simple answer is, I have cases, and I think it's extremely common.
Okay. Have you had abductees remember part of those downloads through dreams, especially dreams?
Sure. Well, some people, their initial recall of their alien abduction experience can be in dreams. Because in a dream state, you're giving yourself permission to remember. It's like getting the hypnosis. Hypnosis isn't magic. Everyone knows that. If you study anything about it, it's you giving yourself permission to remember and letting someone else guide you beyond the points where you might block yourself, but a good hypnotherapist, and thank God there's some very good ones in the field, very, very good people, lots of them. Unfortunately, not enough, but there are some really good people. But so in the dream state, you can recall part of an experience. Now, with me, I admit, because of the MILAB stuff, even my ET abductees, I have a lot of people contact me in cases I've known. I've been in the field, like I said, 35 years. But I tend to focus on the cases that have really good physical evidence because, again, I'm looking for the advanced abduction cases who are having the covert stuff happen. And it tends to be the people with good physical evidence and witnesses and, and lifetime of stuff. So it's just what I don't have all the time in the world, and I do all these other things. So my research has, my bar is pretty high for a case I'm going to put time and
right.
effort.
But I mean, if we answered part 1 and part 2, and we
Yes.
agree on part 1 and part 2, wouldn't it make sense that the MyLab would want to extract that information? When you say that they are now an abductee who's been taken, not by the military, but then afterwards has been taken by the military.
Yeah, well, whether
because when that
however
information
you receive, yeah, exactly. Especially if you've received technical information.
Right.
The cases that have the MILAB stuff are quite often the people who've been shown propulsion, navigation, computers on board, how to fly or operate a craft. These people are the people more likely to have the covert involvement, because those guys are obviously wanting that information, that they're seeing the abductee as a source of intelligence. We become like, hate to say it's gonna sound corny, but we become like spies for these guys. I've actually been, I'm a MILAB. You guys probably know that by now, but that's what started me investigating that, is I had those experiences. And I've been asked in a covert human experience to retrieve certain information if I have another ET experience. Then I had a later covert experience where I had retrieved that information, and I was interrogated extensively about it, and had a lot of physical evidence and whatnot from that experience. And so
that's so interesting, Melinda. So did I get this right, that the MyLab, the military, they're working alongside certain groups of ETs together?
People who report, again, there's cases that are just harassment, surveillance, and monitoring cases that never have the re-abduction or the involvement of seeing ETs and humans work together. Some people, they have ET experiences, they have human experiences, and there's not both together. But those, going to answer your question, those people who who have experiences where they're seeing them working together.
Wow. Okay.
Ask your question again. I got sidetracked there. Sorry.
I just didn't know that people were experiencing them work. In my mind, I thought it was either ET or military, but not both working together. But there are reports of those, and I was curious about what that is and why that would be.
And is it Chris or Jerry? I'm sorry, sir. Your name?
Chris.
Chris.
I'm Chris. That's Jerry.
Jerry, his not son.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem.
I was pretty sure, but I suddenly second guessed myself that I didn't know that was your friends there. But I whether you're
okay. If you look at the little thing right below my name, it says Chris. You can always remember that.
Okay. So, Chris, in your cases, do you have, when you've researched this, have you come across these ones where people like Katie is asking have had military and humans together, like I have?
I have, but from what my experience of interviewing these people after breaking it down is that I believe, and this is my theory on it, is that it always starts with just a plain alien abduction. After that, there seems to be military, but very little ET. They might see an ET, they might not, but it's not the ETs working on them. There's a lot of military people after that. So I agree with you in some respects that they're trying to abstract information after an ET encounter because these people have been downloaded.
And I'll agree with you in part in this way, that the majority of them have the ET and then have the military and aren't seeing them together. But there are many cases, including my own experience, of seeing them together. And so I have many cases of this where people have seen them working together, and those people have provided drawings and stuff for me of their memories. And so, let's say if I have 200 cases of people who have MILAB stuff to some degree, maybe 100 of those have been abducted by the military, and maybe half of those. So that's probably about right.
Now, is there a particular species
that have seen military and humans working together?
Right, but is there a particular species that works with the military?
I can say that a couple different types have been seen. So it's just like in abductions in general. I think the statistics are, there's a handful of a top, 10 or 20 list of ET type seen, that the biggest number or the biggest category is still the grays. Okay, I think there's a lot of research about that. Same in my experiences. The majority are grays, but there are a few, I won't say outliers, because there's enough of them that it's more than just an aberration.
The tall grays or the short?
Both.
Tall or short grays?
Oh, both. Okay. It's like saying human, so you can be tall, short, and,
right,
whatever.
Do you in your experience, Melinda, do you believe a gray is organically grown?
Well, I mean,
it's a tough question, but it falls right into your theory.
Yeah. I think they are non-human intelligence.
Yeah.
And I think they're an organic life form. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're a clone or whether they're a race of beings, I don't know the answer to that. Mm-hmm. If the military guys know, they're not telling me.
No, I guess what I'm trying to drive at is that I'm trying to go down the rabbit hole deeper with you, alongside of you, and say, listen, maybe we're making these grays. Maybe our U.S. government is cloning it. Because why would we be extracting information from these people?
Would we be making the craft that the grays are flying? Or do we have millions of really advanced technology? No.
You're missing my point. My point is that we're trying to extract information, right? Mm-hmm. And if we're working with these species, and this is just something that I'm trying to catch on to what you're saying. So if we're working with these species, right, why don't they just tell us? Why are we trying to extract information from these people as opposed to them just standing right there and saying, hey, listen, this is how you fly the craft?
Okay, I get it. And in 35 years, I've asked myself these questions over and over again, and I've contemplated this with people that are great minds in the field. Okay. The general consensus here is they're wanting to use this as a source of information because maybe, first off, they could be asking us about ET types that they're not involved with, A. Mm-hmm. B, it could be that their relationship with the ETs is very one-sided, very guarded, and not completely forthcoming with information. And so if they're not trusting the ETs, it's like, if you think about like Cold War and a spy scenario, do we have meetings, you go to Russia or China and go, have we had meetings with them and their intelligence people and their military and their leaders? Yeah. Do we still have spies spying on them because we don't trust the information we're getting? Absolutely.
Yeah, makes sense.
We're not forthcoming with information. Yeah. So that what if they need us like spies, because they're not trusting the information because their relationship with the ETs is so one-sided on the side of the ETs, and that they're not trusting what they're getting, or the ETs are withholding information. Maybe they're not giving them all the technical stuff. So they're coming to us wanting the technical stuff they're not getting. Or what if maybe the ETs have given them some technical stuff. We have craft we've retrieved that we're flying. If you go back to the stuff I saw flying in and out of Area 51, I started this interview with, what if we do have some stuff in our possession that we have very limited function of? And because the ETs, you guys are probably familiar with Grant Cameron and all his work, and he wrote a book about humans piloting craft. What if that mental function, that interface, that side component of being able to operate the technology is something the military guys and the guys working on this don't have. Like, it's a missing component. They have the good remote viewers. Maybe they got a few people that can do it, but they want more. And what do abductees do? We do that stuff. We're trained by the ETs to do it. So isn't that a shortcut? If they say, how do you do this? We're going to test you and figure out how you're doing this, because we can shortcut what we're not being told by the ETs and what we're not being trained by them. You guys, these are just theories.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, Melinda, what do you think? How does the military know who has been abducted? Not all abductees report it. And so what's going on there?
Well, we know, like I said, abductions run in families, so do the MILABS things. So if they're following in a genetic lineage, and a lot of abductees who learn that happened to their parents and grandparents, same with the covert human cases, they tend to learn that their parents and grandparents have this involvement. So what if they're following a genetic lineage and following a history, a family history? And so if they've already got someone in their programming or someone they're knowledgeable about with abductions, then that person has kids. Well, then that kid becomes of interest to the covert guys as well. And also, for instance, Ron Regehr, famous researcher in the field, has been a MUFON investigator forever, and has written for the MUFON Journal a number of times. Years ago, wrote this article. He was involved in satellites and said, we were tracking, you guys talked about this before you brought me on, fast walkers, and they're tracking these fast walkers with these satellites and these things coming in from deep space. If in fact that's the case, Ron wrote about it years ago and said, look, he was in charge of the information retrieval system for the DSP spy satellite, and it was getting this data all the time. And that was a satellite not designed for it. That was a satellite designed for tracking Russian and Chinese spy satellites and stuff. And yet we were getting this anomalous data of these fast walkers coming in from space. That's why they gave them that official terminology. Well, you go into, okay, if that's been happening, what if we have satellites up? What if these guys, and they're unlimited access to black ops money, have satellites up just for tracking this stuff?
Wow.
If we've retrieved all these crashes over history, I think it would be irresponsible if they didn't know what was coming and going. I think we're all about to realize these guys know a lot more. Come on, we all know that, you guys. You guys know that. The guys managing this subject know a lot more than they've ever are letting on.
Yeah, somebody does.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, and that's a good segue, actually, perfect segue into the congressional hearings, because, some of these congressional hearings, it's obvious that they don't know their history and they don't appear to know what's going on unless they're really great actors and actresses. They get all Academy Awards. But you've really, Melinda, you've been following this for a long time. And so much has happened, since 2017, right? We only have less than 30 minutes left of the show. So I know we can just touch on the Wilson documents and all that, but there was just another recent hearing, right? And you had sent me a letter that was fascinating. Just, catch us up. What's going on and why you think it's happening now?
Okay. Lots happening. A lot has happened recently.
A lot has happened.
We just had the Senate hearing. And there was another Senate hearing where I wondered if they mentioned, and I didn't ever get to listen to it, but we have the letter written by Rubio and Warner to the, I think it's to the Secretary of Intelligence, if I remember correctly, and also to the ODNI, to Avril Haines, the Director of National Intelligence, and if I remember correctly, okay, and Rubio and Warner, someone's going to fill in on that, I'm sure, in the chat right now, giving me accurate data on this. But I don't have anything in front of me, you guys, so it's off the top of my head and not enough sleep. Okay. So, so going back to that letter was, I think, as a result of the Senate hearing, because we were all disappointed by the senators questioning Kirkpatrick for a number of reasons. Although there were some interesting things, disappointment aside, look for the gems that were buried in there. And there were some interesting things and some very telling things, like Kirkpatrick calling it someone else's problem, SCPs. I think that's very telling of his lack of interest or lack of wanting to be in that position, maybe, unfortunately. But so there were interesting things, but because of the outcome of that, and we're disappointed. Well, apparently the Senate Armed Services Committee was a little bit disappointed because Marco Rubio and Mark Warner, the heads of the Armed Services Committee, wrote this letter from the total armed services, and it mentions everybody's names up in the corner on the letterhead. Was it like 24 people or something? Okay. Mm-hmm. And it said, look, we need to make sure that these things are happening, that Kirkpatrick and his team are getting the information they need, that they're getting the clearances they need, blah, blah, blah. And it was spelled out in there. So that was a significant development for sure. And then we have two things that are about to happen. We are hearing from the House leaders of the House of Congress, and mostly we're hearing this from Burchett, but a few others too, they're talking about this, which is we're supposed to have House hearings on the subject. And my understanding is the next one's supposed to be on the 13th of June. I'll stand corrected if that's been changed, but the last I heard is supposed to be on the 13th of June. And this House hearing, I'm also hearing through the grapevine, is supposed to have some of the military witnesses actually testifying, which is
finally excellent.
Finally,
right. That is encouraging news.
Crossed that happens.
Okay.
Melinda, what is your take? What Sean Fitzpatrick told the senators when he testified that there's no proof of any extraterrestrial involvement?
I think that
there's no evidence of any extraterrestrial.
Yet. And that he's had knowledge to, because this is the other thing. He hasn't had what do you call Title 50 clearance. He hasn't had the clearance to access it.
Sean Fitzpatrick?
That he's come across ... yet. Okay, that he's come across yet. That's why I said it should be followed with ... yet. Okay. And that he hasn't had the clearance to it. Do I think that the government doesn't have that? Of course not. Well, first off, from what I just talked about and what I know, but even if you go to the stuff that people testifying before the senators and congressmen in closed doors, you guys come out. We know a bunch of these people and who they are. They've come out and talked about what they're telling them. We know that Kirkpatrick said at least 24 of these individuals have met with him. Now, he seemed to be a little bit questioning of some of them in their full, whatever. It was obvious in his wording, but he said, continue to send me the really good ones that you guys have, I don't doubt for a minute that Senate and Congress have vetted these, but he could be frustrated because, again, see, he's a scientist. He's going at this, and he's made that very clear as a scientist. He might be a lot of people suggest he's the wrong person for that job. And we're hearing through the grapevine he might be about to be replaced. So who knows? But the House, meanwhile, because he doesn't have access to the stuff, is why Mark Warner and Mark Rubio wrote that letter to say him and his team, the Arrow has got to have access. And Arrow is all domain anomaly resolution office, for those that don't know. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. And that's the department he was put in charge of. So Warner and, obviously the Armed Services Committee with the letter, given by Warner and Rubio, obviously they're saying, look, we're asking the heads of intelligence to make sure he's provided the data, that he's given the clearance, that, that he can get his job done that we're asking him to do. And so I thought that letter was very, very telling. And now the House, separately from Senate, is saying, we're going to do this, and I hope that they'll have the witnesses. That's what we're hearing is supposed to happen. And, we're hearing all sorts of stuff through the grapevine that there's a lot of things. We're also hearing there may be a second House hearing before the end of June. So there might be 2 of them in June.
Right.
You know,
we need the House. I would love to see the House and the Senate, Congress. They should all go to like a big college campus, where you have the big seating. Actually have a history lesson on the phenomena, like talk. Do you think, Melinda, and I wanted to ask you this question earlier, have you heard about
Katie, that could be coming down the road? We just, I think this is rolling out. Someone said we're getting disclosure at the speed of government. I think that's brilliant. We're getting disclosure at the speed of government, and it's frustrating. It's really frustrating for us in the field. But for someone like me who's been in the field 35 years, you guys and me, we both know researchers. We know quite a few researchers who've been in it a hell of a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
It's an 80-year history of formal ufology, and you go, well, wait a second, did I ever dream that we'd be even here in my life? Right. If you had said this 10 years ago to me, I would have said, what are you smoking?
Right. And we do need to get them up to speed,
Yeah.
Do you think, though, Melinda, I wanted to ask you, first of all, did you know about the 100 plus men, women who have died at the hands of ET? Have you heard this before? Do you think that's true? And why aren't they aware of that, if it is true?
Well, I take it with a grain of salt, given that we're, okay. I would have to go back to Dr. Gary Nolan's interview with Tucker and other interviews. And someone tell me out there, you can write in the comments, whatever, if there was a place that Gary Nolan said that other than Tucker saying he said that. Okay.
Yeah.
So Tucker saying he said that, I take that with a grain of salt.
Well, Tucker didn't say it was him.
Oh, who said
Tucker never mentioned Gary Nolan's name.
No, it was Gary that he was talking about. No, but it's he had Gary on his show,
right?
And he said this guy came to me and wanted to be on the show. That's well known, and Gary's even said that was me. And Gary did the show, so we know it's Dr. Gary Nolan. That's not a question, because Gary did his show and did approach Tucker, and that again we're hearing Tucker's version of it. Right. I'm not saying Tucker could be just flavoring it a certain way,
Because I've never heard that before. I mean, I knew there was some, maybe I've heard of maybe 12 or less, but not 100. So when I heard that, I was like, wait.
Gary actually said that to Tucker. Someone would have to ask Dr. Nolan and maybe tell me if there's an interview he's done where he said that. I've watched it not all of his interviews, but any long stretch, but I've listened to quite a few of them, and I've not heard him say that. So I don't know if he actually said that. Now, he could mean the byproduct of, in other words, not the, there's a UFO, boom, I'm dead. It could be
right. You mean
health,
that,
health occurrences, because you could even go, you could go to Cash Landrum and say those guys died from it. Now,
could that be possible?
I don't think so. I think they just got really close to some technology and had radiation sickness, which caused problems over the years. And there you go. I think there's ample evidence for that. And other cases, so it could be as a byproduct of. So I don't know if Gary is saying that, and if he's saying it where the data is from.
Gary
that he said
Gary has studied MRIs that have brain injury. There is no question about that. He has shown the MRI. He has come out and said himself these people have been damaged. Now,
but did he tell Tucker 100 people or more have died? I don't know that.
I tend to believe that a lot of people during the course of history have died from UFO encounters. Now, when you say die, I'm not saying they've been shot out of the sky. They have been zapped with a ray gun. But there is ample evidence that shows that people who've had encounter have had severe injuries enough that down the road they have died. One famous one
from the effects of radiation.
Right.
Radiation, acoustic waves, frequencies, all kinds of different things that whatever they are. So we could interpret this in a different way. We could be saying that these people have died, and yes, they have, but through the effect of their encounters, not immediately, but they have died.
Yeah.
So it's not intentional on the ET's part. Yeah. It's not like they're out trying. Well,
they're not taking a ray gun and zapping people in the head.
I think it's allow you now to add, abductees are first off, they can have a traumatic reaction to their experience. I'm not going to negate that, not psychological stuff. That happens. But abductees have minor physical things, but if anything, the overwhelming evidence is that when they're worked on medically or whatever, that they're healed from the event afterwards. And there's the work of Preston Dennett and others into cases where abductees have actually been healed.
Yes.
So
like Travis.
I don't think there's a lot of evidence for maliciousness on part of the ETs. No, I'm not going to, I wouldn't dare say, I know, anyone who says all ETs are good or bad is smoking something, because there's no way to know that. How many entities are out there from how many places, how many realms, how many dimensions, I wouldn't even begin to know. And so I can't say whether they're this or that, but I can say most abductees have a healing event in relationship to their experience, and or have had literal healings, happen.
Like Travis Walton, right?
Yeah,
Travis
exactly.
Walton says,
great. Yeah, and a case, but there's many, countless. And so, and like I said, Preston Dennett's written a couple books about it, as an example.
Yeah.
So you go, okay, there's these cases. And so I don't think there's a lot of evidence for maliciousness, but their technology, the advanced technology, getting too close may be dangerous for your health.
Wait a minute. You have the hybridization program. You've had women who've had their babies taken from them. You've had women who've been implanted without knowing about it. I consider that malicious, don't you? If you take something from my body without my permission, and even yourself said you had restraining marks on you, I if they want something, there's a way to ask.
Okay. Yes, and some abductees are. Okay. In the hybrid thing, that gets into this whole debate of what's the production of hybrids for? Well, truth is we don't know. So anything is speculation. I admit that. Okay. If we're speculating about what hybrids are for, where more and more abductees feel they're raising hybrid children, they're meeting, many researchers have written books about this. Some researchers, their kind of major subject line now is about abductees raising hybrid children, like Mary Rodwell. Okay. Abductees training hybrids in daily life situations, the work of David Jacobs and others. So you go, wait a second, what if the hybrids are, there's a lot of information to suggest that these beings are extremely intelligent, extremely gifted in psi. If they're being integrated into the human race, is that affecting the human race? One would think if you have an increase in huge jumps in intelligence, huge jumps in psi abilities, that this is an advancement in a consciousness within the human race. What if that's what they're doing? I'm just throwing that out there because I don't know.
And you're right about that, Melinda. What if? And that's simply so. But do you have the right to take something from somebody's body without their permission? Do you have the right to experiment on somebody's without their permission?
Well, of course not. Of course not. Yeah. But Chris, I can agree with you, and you're thinking like humans, or you're thinking like how humans treat humans. How do we treat animals? Do we do all that to animals?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Do we have the right to do that to animals?
No.
I don't think so.
Right. But that doesn't make us right because we do.
Yeah, exactly.
We do that.
It doesn't make us right.
Right.
You're right. And it doesn't make them right. You're right. I can agree with you there. I think it's just, and so much of this is theory because there's so much we don't know.
Right.
I'm an abductee that has hybrids. That's part of
it. Is it fair to say then, Melinda?
With abductions or
right.
I mean, when you look at all the abduction evidence, and when you look at the total numbers, and we're talking tens of thousands of research cases, there's these statistics that are off the charts, and one of them is the taking of ovum and sperm and the production of hybrids. That's so you can say that happens. It happens the significant number of cases. I'm not saying it's the only thing that happens. My God, of course, a million things happen.
Right. Is it fair to say? Yeah. Is it fair? Is it fair to say, Melinda, then that a vast majority of abductees that have, that are part of the hybrid program, that they come to terms. Let's say, okay, like Chris is saying, they're taken against their will, but at some point they come to peace with it, or they come to terms with it, and they kind of integrate it into that, and it becomes less fearful. Or do you know what I'm trying to say? Do you see that progression?
And that's true. Now, I don't know. I've always questioned, and even with myself, I question, is that a coping mechanism, kind of, what do you call it, Stockholm syndrome or whatever?
Oh, good point.
Yeah. Is that kind of a coping mechanism?
Yeah.
Or is it the reality? And I don't know.
That's a good question.
I don't know.
Because it could be so terrifying. You almost have to protect your mental. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so separate out, even if it's not terrifying, because not all abductees are traumatized. I'm not discounting those that are. And some people are initially, and like you said, the more they live with their experience, they kind of come to peace with it. Now, is that because they grow and continue to have experiences and realize they're being helped in some way or educated, and and it's not all bad. But the fact that there's any trauma, Chris, goes back to your argument. Why would beings do this? Are they unaware that they're traumatizing? But again, it's like, are we unaware that we traumatize animals? I could go back to that argument again. You guys, these are all speculations.
But look what you said about look what you said about your abduction, right? When you woke up, you had marks, like restraining marks. Am I correct when you said that?
Well, that was one experience, and it could have been that they were doing a gynecological procedure on me, and it could be I tried to move around in stirrups or something, and it caused that. I'm not saying that they harmed me.
No, I didn't say that they
I've
did.
had MILAB experiences where I've had bruising too. I'm not saying the military guys deliberately harmed me. Now, one time I was fighting with them, and I got bruised because we're battling with each other.
That's interesting.
But not
Why were you
because they
fighting
said,
with them?
we're going to hurt you.
Why were you fighting with them?
I was defending myself.
Yeah,
I don't blame you.
I don't blame you either.
I was defending myself.
Good for you.
Making a poor attempt because big military guys, the special forces, like I'm going to go, oh yeah, right, yeah, but I guess I attempted to, But then in one of the experiences, I got bruises because when they were removing me from the apartment, I tripped and fell over furniture. That the person who lived below actually was woken up, and we heard from them later that they were woken up by the experience. Myself and her friend had an abduction together from her apartment, the hands of military, and we tripped and fell over the furniture, and it broke. And the guy who lived below her said he was woken up by thinking that her whole entertainment unit had fallen over. Well, the entertainment didn't fall over. I did.
So, Melinda, we have about 5 minutes left of the show. As always, this flies by. I want to give you some time to talk about your UFO tours in Sedona. Most of us know Sedona is notoriously a high energetic, vortex, portal type of place. So can you tell us about how often you do this, what's involved, what you see when you're out there? So like I said, we have about 3 minutes left, if you can kind of
thank you for that. Katie. I now have 4 competitors, so there's 5 of us. I'm the only one that guarantees sightings your money back. Because about a year into doing it, I realized we're seeing stuff every time, so that was safe. I've had 4 times where my clients felt they didn't have sightings. 2 of those groups rescheduled, went out with me nights later, like they just, were in town for multiple days, and they had great sightings. So I just didn't charge them for the first night, and they had great sightings when they came again.
Oh, that's cool.
And one was 2 elderly couples. I offered them the refund at the end of the evening. They said, Melinda, we had such a great time. We refused the refund. And so one time I had a family who did want the refund, and I refunded them. But I've done now, I said in the beginning, you read my bio, but I'm now up to, because that bio was, written a couple months ago, updated for Contact in the Desert. And so since then, I'm now up to, my next tour will be number 1,660. So
wow.
1,660. And in 1,660 tours, I've only had to make good on the refund once.
That's awesome. That's something to be very proud of.
I don't know if decide. I let my clients decide. At the end of the evening, I jokingly said, did you see stuff? Did you have sightings? And they go, yeah. And I go, and then I'm like, soup Nazi. I go, no refund for you.
How long do you stay out on a typical, how many nights a week do you go out? Well, how often do you stay out?
From when they first meet me here at the Center for New Age, and we take care of people using restrooms, giving directions, and blah, blah, blah. And then we drive out to the viewing location. So maybe it's, let's say right now, if they're meeting me at 7, we get out there at like 7:30. I'm going to do about a half hour of talking, or maybe 7:20. So there's half an hour, maybe 40 minutes of talking about what you're going to see, not going to see, how to know if it's satellites. You know, I cover all that. Right. Satellites. Drones are illegal over Sedona at night. It's a $10,000 fine. Thank God. So we won't see drones because it's a $10,000 fine. You know, and but I talk about that. Planes, helicopters, how to know if it's military planes versus commercial, you know, different strobe patterns. I talk about that stuff. I cover all the known stuff. So I say only and only when you can rule out all the known things, do you have an unknown?
Right.
Now, I'll jump to some of the most significant stuff. We have seen fully structured craft, like, you know, this floating in the sky, you know, full structure, hard edges. Yeah. You're getting the hard edges, the detail. We have seen that on 44 tours. Some of those tours were more than one structured object. So it currently holds at 63 structured craft between 44 tours, 63 separate structured things. Some of those are really significant sightings.
Right. I know I had asked you some of those you have reported to MUFON, and others that you're going to.
And some I need to.
Yeah.
I'm bad. You guys, you know, we know, right? In ufology, is it kind of understood less than 1% of sightings are reported. Well, I've probably presented a little bit, maybe 5% of mine. But
I love that you do that.
Out of 63 structure craft, I've only reported 5 of them to MUFON. So I do need to get caught up on that. And for instance, I saved a message on my phone because I want to call these people back. So about a week ago, clients who went out with me last November. Now, it doesn't always have to be structured to be.
We got 1 minute left. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, we had a big amber light, and we had 2 military jets come in on either side of a giant dime-size amber light escorting this. And these clients text and call me to say, we can't stop talking about that night.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I love those cases when you have the military coming in. Melinda, you've been an amazing guest. I mean, you're right. You said it at the beginning. We're going to have to have you back, and we're going to have you back.
Oh, it's just so much. So many subjects. I didn't know you guys were getting the MILAB stuff. We didn't cover much with the disclosure and Wilson Davis there.
It's all fascinating.
I'm lecturing at Contact in the Desert.
Yes.
On a lecture that's half what I call reverse engineering current disclosure. I start with whatever's happened up to the minute. So even if something happens the day before my lecture, I will
stay updated.
And I will go backward.
I will see you out there.
And then the other half will be specifically about Wilson Davis.
That's excellent.
So my lecture is half that, half what's going on in disclosure. And then I'm leading a CE5 event with other speakers at the conference. Katie, I hope after, because I know your lecture overlaps. So I'm sorry I'm doing that. I'll miss your lecture. But please come after your lecture and participate in the CE5.
I can't wait to hang out with you at Contact. I'm looking forward to seeing you out there, Melinda. Thank you to all our listeners. Thank you, Melinda, for being here. Thank you, Chris, Jerry, and Jenna.
Thank you, guys. Chris, I agree with everything you said. Okay, so we're on the same page. Your questions are perfect. Thank you.
And thank you to our producer, Bill Skywatcher. And we will see you next Tuesday night. You guys all have a fantastic rest of your week. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.